You keep adding tasks to your list like it's going to help. 20 items, 30, 40. You're hoarding work instead of finishing it. That list isn't a plan. It's a scroll of anxiety you revisit every hour, asking the same question. What should I work on first? You're burning fuel before you even turn the key. The fix is surgical reduction. Cut your daily plan down to 9 items structured by priority. 3 major outcomes. 3 supporting tasks. 3 quick wins. Then install automatic responses that remove the question entirely. Morning starts? Begin task 1. No negotiation. No willpower. Your day runs on rails instead of constant recalibration. But first, you need to understand why your brain treats that massive list like a threat. Cognitive hoarding is the real problem. You're collecting tasks like they're going to appreciate in value. They won't. Every item you add to that list becomes another micro decision, draining your mental bandwidth before real work begins. Most professionals operate with sprawling task lists. 20 items, 30 items, sometimes 50 items written down with the belief that visibility equals completion. But here's what actually happens. Every item on that list is a decision waiting to burn cognitive fuel. Your prefrontal cortex handles decision-making. It weighs options, evaluates priorities, and chooses what comes next. That capacity is finite. Every time you scan that list asking, "What next?" you're spending energy on negotiation instead of execution. This is why you finish the day exhausted, but with nothing meaningful complete. You spent your cognitive budget deciding instead of doing. The morning starts with promise. You look at your list. You weigh which task feels most urgent. You consider which one you're in the mood for. You factor in deadlines, difficulty, and how much time you think you have. Then you pick something. 5 minutes later, you question whether you chose right. Should you have started with the other thing? Maybe that email needs to go out first. The cycle repeats. The list isn't helping you prioritize. It's creating paralysis by analysis. Your brain evolved to handle immediate threats. A predator in the bushes, a cliff edge ahead, a competitor challenging your position. These are concrete, singular problems with clear solutions. Your ancestors didn't juggle 40 abstract commitments simultaneously. They focused on survival, one challenge at a time. When you present your brain with an infinite scroll of tasks, it doesn't see opportunity. It sees danger. Every item represents an incomplete obligation, a potential failure, a thing that might come back to hurt you if left undone. So your stress response activates. Not enough to make you run, just enough to keep you tense, scattered, and inefficient. The fix is surgical reduction. Cut your daily plan down to exactly 9 items structured by cognitive weight and effort level. 3 major outcomes that require peak focus. These are the tasks that define whether today mattered. They demand your highest mental energy, which means you schedule them first thing in the morning during your peak focus period. They're the work that moves the needle on your actual goals. 3 supporting tasks that move projects forward. These don't need maximum mental energy, but they can't be ignored. They're the connective tissue that keeps momentum alive. 3 quick wins under 10 minutes each. These maintain motivation through visible progress when the major outcomes feel slow. This structure acts as a biological guardrail. It matches work to your brain's natural capacity instead of fighting it. You're not managing time. You're managing cognitive expenditure. 9 items is enough to fill a productive day. It's not so many that you spend half your energy choosing between them. When you sit down to work, you already know what the major outcomes are. When you finish one, you move to the next supporting task or quick win based on your energy level, not on scanning 30 options and negotiating with yourself about which one deserves attention. You eliminate the negotiation phase entirely. The difference shows up immediately. You stop second-guessing. You stop feeling like you're always behind. You stop ending the day wondering where the hours went. The work gets done because you removed the friction between intention and action. A perfect plan is just a list of wishes until you build the tripwire that forces you to start. Implementation intentions install the automatic response that removes the starting problem entirely. Every productive action has a gap between knowing and doing. You know what needs doing. The task sits there in your 3-3-3 plan. Clearly defined, obviously important. But there's a space between intention and execution. That's where procrastination lives. You stare at the task. You consider whether now is the right time. You wonder if you should check email first, or maybe grab another coffee, or just let your brain warm up a bit more before diving in. The task doesn't get harder during this negotiation. You do. Implementation intentions close that gap by creating if-then rules that bypass negotiation entirely. The structure is simple. If X trigger happens, then I will do Y action. If it's 9 a.m., then I start my main task immediately. Calendar alert at 2. Review parking lot and clear quick wins. Lunch break ends. Open the document for major task 2. These aren't suggestions, they're preloaded commands. When the trigger fires, the action follows. No deliberation, no internal debate about readiness or timing, or whether you feel like it. Most people rely on motivation or willpower to bridge the gap. That's expensive. Willpower is a depleting resource that burns down with use throughout the day. You spend some deciding what to wear, more deciding what to eat for breakfast, even more resisting the urge to check your phone during your commute. By the time you sit down to work, you've already burned a portion of your daily supply on trivial choices. When you depend on willpower for every task transition, you're gambling on your future self having enough left when it matters most. Some days you win. Most days you run out by noon and spend the afternoon in low-grade avoidance mode, scrolling or reorganizing or doing anything that doesn't require real effort. Implementation intentions remove the gamble. They convert decisions into automatic responses, the same way your brain handles brushing your teeth or locking your door. You don't negotiate with yourself about whether to brush. The trigger is bedtime. The action is automatic. You just do it. The same mechanism works for complex tasks. The trigger becomes the cue. The action becomes inevitable. Your brain stops treating the task as optional and starts treating it as the natural next step in a sequence. Here's the breakdown. Start with 3 implementation intentions this week. 1 for starting your first major outcome from your 3-3-3 plan. Link it to something concrete. Coffee finished. Email inbox closed. Morning stand-up ends. Pick a trigger that happens consistently at roughly the same time each day. 1 for transitioning after lunch. This is when most people lose momentum. You've eaten. Your energy dips slightly. The afternoon stretches ahead. Without a trigger, you drift into low-value work. With 1, you restart strong and pull your second major outcome into reality. 1 for handling interruptions or distractions. When someone drops by your desk or a notification pulls your attention, you need a pre-decided response that protects your current task. Write these intentions down. Be specific about both the trigger and the action. Vague intentions fail. When I feel ready isn't a trigger. When my calendar alert sounds at 9 is a trigger. Within 7 days, you'll notice smoother transitions and less mental friction at decision points. Your day runs on rails instead of constant recalibration. You stop losing minutes to internal negotiation. The system tells you what comes next. You execute. But even the strongest trigger can't stop every stray thought from breaking through mid-task. You're deep in focus when a thought hits. I need to follow up on that budget question. Even if it's valuable, it's a distraction right now. You tell yourself, you'll remember. You won't. The average knowledge worker experiences an interruption or self-distraction every 3 to 5 minutes. Some are external. Notifications. Colleagues stopping by your desk. Urgent requests that demand immediate attention. Others are internal. Thoughts that bubble up mid-work. Ideas for a different project. Tasks you suddenly remember need handling. Both types fragment your attention and derail your current task. The instinct is to either act on them immediately or try to hold them in working memory. Both strategies fail. Acting immediately means constant task switching. Your brain needs time to fully engage with complex work. When you're writing a proposal or analyzing data or building a strategy, you're not at full capacity in the first 30 seconds. You need time to load the relevant context into your working memory, to understand the relationships between different pieces of information, to see the patterns that lead to good decisions. Every time you switch tasks, you pay a cognitive penalty. You lose the depth you were building. Then you have to rebuild it when you return, which means you're spending more time ramping up than actually producing output. You're bleeding bandwidth on transitions instead of execution. Trying to remember the thought while continuing your work is worse. You're now running two cognitive processes simultaneously: the task at hand and the effort to not forget the intrusion. Your brain isn't designed for true multitasking. What feels like parallel processing is actually rapid switching between two tasks, and both suffer. The quality of your current work drops because you're splitting attention. The thought you're trying to remember gets fuzzy because you're not fully encoding it. You end up doing both things poorly instead of one thing well. This is where the parking lot creates leverage. Keep a visible distraction capture system. Physical notepad, digital doc, whatever works for your workflow. Write down every intrusive thought the moment it appears. One line, no elaboration. Budget follow-up, client feedback review, schedule next quarter planning. Then return to your task immediately. The act of writing it down satisfies your brain's need to acknowledge the thought without derailing focus. You're not ignoring it, you're postponing it. Your brain accepts that deal because the thought is now externalized. It exists outside your head. You don't need to hold it anymore. Schedule 2 parking lot reviews daily: midday and end of day. During review, decide what's actionable, what's trash, and what gets scheduled for tomorrow's 3-3-3 plan. Some items reveal themselves as genuinely important and get promoted to supporting tasks or quick wins. Others were just mental noise that felt urgent in the moment but don't matter when evaluated with fresh perspective. Most items fall into the second category. You delete them and move on. This defends your bandwidth. Your working memory stays locked on high-value work instead of playing security guard for random thoughts. You protect focus while preserving ideas. The parking lot becomes a filter. It catches everything so you can sort it later when you're in decision mode rather than execution mode. The difference compounds throughout the day. You maintain longer stretches of deep work. Your output quality improves because you're giving complex tasks the sustained attention they require. You stop feeling like your brain is a browser with 40 tabs open. Now you have 3 distinct tools: the 3-3-3 structure, implementation intentions, the parking lot. Each one works, but they need to be welded into a single workday engine. Here's how the 3 pieces weld together into a single workday engine that delivers ROI on your hours. Start your morning by building your 3-3-3 plan before you open your inbox. This is strategic defense against the chaos of the workday. 3 major outcomes. These are your non-negotiables, the tasks that define whether today was productive. They're the work that moves your career forward, the deliverables that matter to your clients or your boss, the outcomes that create real value. Schedule these during your peak focus periods. For most people, that's the first 3 hours after you start work. Your cognitive capacity is highest. Your ability to handle complex problems is sharpest. Your resistance to distraction is strongest. This is when you execute the work that actually matters. 3 supporting tasks that advance projects without requiring peak mental energy. These keep momentum alive on longer-term work. They're necessary, but don't demand the same cognitive horsepower as your major outcomes. 3 quick wins that take under 10 minutes each. These prove progress when the major work feels slow. Write these down before you check messages. This is your contract with the day. Once it's written, you've eliminated the question of what deserves your attention. You already decided. Now you execute. Next, assign implementation intentions to each major outcome. When I finish my first coffee, I will start major task 1. When my 10 o'clock meeting ends, I will begin major task 2. When I return from lunch, I will tackle major task 3. These triggers remove the friction between finishing one thing and starting the next. You're not relying on motivation to bridge the gap. The system does it automatically. As you work, distractions will surface. An idea for next quarter's strategy, a concern about a client deliverable, a reminder to schedule that appointment you've been putting off. These thoughts feel urgent when they appear. They create pressure to act immediately, or at least hold them in your head until you can deal with them properly. Without the parking lot, these thoughts create micro-interruptions that compound throughout the day. Each one fragments your attention. Each one pulls you slightly out of the depth you were building. Each one costs bandwidth to manage. With the parking lot, you capture and release them in under 10 seconds. One line in your notepad. Then back to the current task. No extended processing. No internal debate about importance. Just capture and continue. Your parking lot becomes a buffer zone between focus and chaos. It protects your deep work from the constant assault of random thoughts while ensuring nothing valuable gets lost. You stop carrying mental weight while trying to produce quality output. By midday, review your parking lot during lunch. Some items become quick wins for the afternoon. Budget follow-up takes 5 minutes. Schedule it after your next major outcome as a transition task. Others get scheduled into tomorrow's plan. The strategy idea is valuable but doesn't need immediate action. It becomes a supporting task for later in the week. Most get deleted because they weren't actually important. This integrated approach creates a flywheel effect. Your 3-3-3 structure prevents overcommitment. You can't say yes to everything when you only have 9 slots. Your implementation intentions eliminate startup friction by reducing decision-making friction at every transition point. You never stare at your plan wondering what to do next because the trigger tells you. Your parking lot preserves bandwidth. Distractions get captured, not acted on, which means your working memory stays allocated to high-value tasks. The system feels easier than the sum of its parts because each element removes a different source of friction. Together, they create leverage. You're no longer managing time. You're managing mental energy, which is the actual scarce resource in knowledge work. Time is fixed. Energy is variable. This system preserves it by removing unnecessary decisions and protecting concentration. The result is visible momentum. But momentum only matters if it's pointed at the right target. Your 3 major outcomes define the target. Everything else is support structure. You never finish anything because you're trying to finish everything. The 3-3-3 method, implementation intentions, and the parking lot aren't about doing more. They're about doing what matters without burning out your decision-making capacity. Build tomorrow's 3-3-3 plan tonight. Install 3 implementation intentions for your 3 major outcomes. Keep a parking lot visible on your desk. Managing mental energy is more profitable than managing time. Time refills automatically. Energy doesn't. Every decision you eliminate, every distraction you capture, every transition you automate, that's energy you redirect toward outcomes that actually move your work forward. Apply this one step today and track your progress. You're not a list hoarder anymore. You're a surgical planner.